أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So in this episode we are going to be discussing the Battle of Badr. To make us understand, just believe for now that the Battle of Badr is divided into two. So we have two types of Battle of Badr. The first one is called Ghazwa Badr Al-Sughra, and the second one is called Ghazwa Badr Al-Kubra. Now, what is the meaning of that? Let's start with Ghazwa Badr Al-Sughra. You see, from the word Sughra, it means something that is lesser or smaller. So the first one is called the smaller Battle of Badr, or the lesser Battle of Badr. And the second one, from the word Kubra, means something that is greater. So that is the greater Battle of Badr, the one that we all know about. So let's start by explaining the series of events that occurred from the Battle of Badr, the smaller one. Then let's proceed to the Ghazwa Badr Al-Kubra later. Now the Ghazwa Badr Al-Sughra, or sometimes called Badr Al-Ula, which means the first Battle of Badr. It's called the Battle of Badr because it took place on the plains of Badr. Badr is a location, a place. So this small Battle of Badr occurred on the plains of Badr. That is the reason why they call it that. But it has nothing to do with the Ghazwa Badr Al-Kubra. It has nothing to do with the bigger war, which is the proper Battle of Badr that we all know. As it didn't involve the Quraysh, rather it involved one of the allies of the Quraysh. Now, let's cut all that off for us to understand far better what happened exactly in this Ghazwa Badr Al-Sughra. What happened was that one of these allies of Quraysh snuck into Medina in the middle of the night and stole a bunch of camels. And after doing that, they killed one or two herders along the way. And as soon as the Prophet ﷺ found out, the Prophet immediately gathered 70 of the Muhajirun, which means those people who emigrated from Mecca into Medina with him. He gathered them and went out with them to look for these people who stole the camels. And this was the first time they chased those people onto the plain of Badr. And that was just the first time the Muslim has anything to do with the Badr itself, the location Badr. So they chased those camel thieves onto the plains of Badr. And after that, the Muslim used to call that Ghazwa Badr Al-Sughra, the minor battle of what? Of Badr. But because these raiders, these camel thieves, were just 4 to 5 in numbers, they were much faster than the Muslims. And so they managed to flee the scene. So the Prophet ﷺ was not able to capture them at this point in time. These events took place at the plains of Badr, but did not involve the Quraysh. Just a group that is allied with the Quraysh raided Medina, stole camels, and killed the couple of herders. And the Prophet ﷺ pursued them but were unable to catch them. And this showed that not all the expeditions resulted in immediate success. Not all the expeditions resulted in immediate success. As a lesson from this incident, the Prophet ﷺ decided to set up a network of spies to monitor the Quraysh activities. The Prophet realized if there is something like spy network, they would have noted them before they could steal from them. And this shows us that even though he is the Prophet of Allah, Allah didn't just gift him with miracle after miracle. Allah didn't just allow every expedition to be successful. Some of them, he came back empty-handed, because there is a lesson to learn. Because there are other wisdoms that we might not understand. But Allah's Azza wa Jalla's plan is infinitely wise. And this same thing is common in our environment, especially in this Africa. When they see someone who happens to be a man of God, or who claims to be a man of God, or who they revere, and they see the person is having problems in life, death of husband, death of wife, death of kids, maybe robbery, fire outbreak, they will keep asking themselves, but he said he's a man of God, how can all these things be happening to him? Allah Azza wa Jalla said in the Quran, Alif Lam Ra, أَأَحْسِبَ النَّاسِ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ أَأَحْسِبَ النَّاسِ, do you guys, are you calculating it in your head? أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا, that we Allah, we are going to spare you. أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا, simply because you say, okay, we believe in Allah. Do you think Allah is going to spare you? وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ, and we're not going to give you fitna, problems? We're not going to test you? Impossible. So, the Prophet ﷺ do not get everything every time. So one of the consequences of the first battle of Badr was that the Prophet decided that he needed to have spies for the monitoring of the tracks of Quraysh and their allies. So the Prophet ﷺ sent out groups of Sahaba to find out what was happening with the Quraysh trip to Yemen. Now careful, the Quraysh trip to Yemen, we never talked about that. We only talked about that trip to Syria, and that is in Ghazwa al-Ushaira. So where Abu Sufyan quickly took a detour simply because one of his soldiers saw the Prophet's army coming. So that was what we talked about. So why did the Prophet ﷺ set up a network of spies to check through their movement to Yemen? Do not forget, we talked about Rihlata Shita, it was safe, the summer and the winter trade. So the point is, they travel to Yemen and they also travel to Syria. So that is from Mecca to Yemen or from Mecca to Syria. So they've missed the one from Mecca to Syria. So they want to make sure they track the one from Mecca to Yemen. So the Prophet ﷺ still want to know all the options, because of course an attack on the Yemeni side would take the Quraysh completely by surprise. They would never expect the Muslims from up north, that is Medina, to double back all the way around Mecca just to try to attack them from the direction of Yemen. Now, interestingly enough, no attack of the Muslims actually took place. But the Prophet ﷺ is not ruling it out. Now look at this. He's keeping all options on the table. He sends out reconnaissance or a spying expedition to see what is happening with the caravans of the Quraysh that go to Yemen. The Prophet was like, if we missed the caravan of Quraysh from Syria, let us get that ones coming from Yemen. And so, this is now called Sariya Nakhla. So Sariya Nakhla, that is going to tell you that the Prophet wasn't involved in it. As Sariya are just some kind of battalion sent out by the Prophet. So again, Sariya Nakhla is the direct consequence of the first battle of Badr. The first battle of Badr was just a bunch of thieves who stole camels from Medina, and they chased them into the plains of Badr rather. And the Prophet set up a spy network to check out what? To check out the caravan of Quraysh going to Yemen or coming from that Yemen. And this is called Sariya and Nakhla. Now the point is, what is Sariya and Nakhla? That is another expedition entirely.